Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring a new product from Altenew. This is the Craft Your Life project kit. It's called Meadow Breeze, and in the kit you get all four of these. So you get a 6x8 stamp set, you get a stencil set that has 6 stencils, a 3D embossing folder, and a coordinating die. Just for transparency, this is, you can see how generously sized it is here. This is an A2 size card. This is a little bit of a higher price point. It's $60. All the things are sold together. I don't think that you can get them separately. But there's like $80 worth of product here. So there is a discount, but you guys know I just like to tell you the truth, and that's the truth of the matter. So I wanted to use all of the pieces parts, because if I had purchased this instead of being part of a Instagram hop, where they sent it to me, I would want to know how to use all of the pieces parts. So I used everything. I used everything in the kit. So it is part of an Instagram hop. Here we're stamping this down in Obsidian ink from Altenew. This is oil-based, so it's waterproof, because we are going to be doing some watercoloring. And I am stamping on Canson Monteval watercolor paper. That's just my preferred watercolor paper, but you can use whatever you like. We're, in addition to the watercolor, like I said, I use the stencils, I use the whole thing. Let's talk about the Instagram hop. If you have Instagram, I'm certainly not telling you to go get it if you don't have it, but they are doing a hop where they're giving away a $30 gift card as well as 5 $15 gift cards. So if you have it, there's no reason not to participate and possibly have your chance to win. That is how, we've talked about this recently, before I was a creator full-time, I spent quite a bit of time playing in challenges so that I could win gift cards so that I could buy things for my crafty stash. And that's what I did. That's what I did to supplement my spending. So here I am using the watercolor brush markers from Altenew. These are one of my favorite products from them. And I thought that it would be super fun, because I love a watercolor look. But sometimes a watercolor look is really time consuming, especially for me, just because I like to have a lot of dimension. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of combine the two with the stencils. So here I just wanted to show you, you can put down the marker first and then blend that out. I prefer to put water down with these markers and then add my pigment, because I feel like they're just much more pigmented. Like the color comes out more intense, which is one of the things I like about them. These are designed like like what they're called, water brush markers. You squeeze the sides of them to let out more or less pigment. And so you can get some pretty intense colors right out the gate, which is my favorite thing about them. So you can go with a little or you can go with a lot. You also don't need water to blend them. Very much like a Zig Clean Color marker or an Arteza like water brush marker. You can blend them with each other without using any water. I do like to add the water, but I also like intense color that doesn't take me a super long time to get there, hence why they are one of my favorite product. This technique is super easy. All I do is pick 2 colors, and I could even have put yellow in here if I wanted to. You could do more than 2, but you just want to make sure that they play nice together. So I did I think it's called Purple Wine. I think that's the one I used. So I picked the Purple Wine and then the Autumn Blaze, which is an orange, and then I did Fresh Lemon also with the orange, and then I picked out a couple of blues and greens. Whatever color palette you're into. I have recently tried to kind of like break out of my normal color palette. And I've done quite a few cards with a different color scheme. And so today I just wanted to go back to what I like, which is pinks, oranges, and yellows. I think they're pretty together. So that is what I went with. You don't want to work next to 2 areas that, like, I'm doing the whole flower, because to me I'm doing all the, like, I'm not trying to shade it or anything. I'm just dropping in the pigment and letting them do their thing. I'm using the paintbrush basically just to make sure that I'm getting it out all the way to the edges. But this is like super fast. You just don't want to work next to 2 areas that are wet. like, for example, I wouldn't do the yellow flower that's right next to this purple flower next, because then they'll bleed together, which is also totally a look that you could do and just have them kind of be multicolored. But I was trying to maintain some some kind of sense here, where some of my flowers were yellow or yellow orange and some of them were pink, pink orange, this coral color that they sometimes make. So yeah, let's talk about a little bit of story time. I don't even want to call it mismanagement. Or how do I word this? Where you prioritize things poorly. So for a large portion of my life, I have been, and still am part-time, really very part-time on occasion, a emergency dispatcher. And a huge part of that job is prioritizing. You have to prioritize what is more important, what has the immediate need. And I have done that for years, because in those situations, like, the things are presented to me, and because of my job experience, and I don't know, some people I guess are just a good fit for the job. I always felt like I was. Like, it is easy for me to know what the priorities are. I am also having to learn how to prioritize it now as a person who works full-time from home and is my own boss. Sometimes what happens is, like, companies will either reach out to me, or it's companies that I normally work for, and sometimes a week is just super heavy. Like, and that is this week. That is this week 110%. And sometimes those companies send me things and they're like, hey, if you get to it, this is the release day. And I always try my very best to, like, get it done on release day. But everybody does their releases differently. So some people do their releases at like midnight. Some people do their releases at like 9 a.m. the next morning. Some people do their releases at 1 p.m. Some people do their releases at 8 p.m. Like, it is wild, y'all. So my Google Calendar basically looks crazy, because not only does it have my schedule in it, like my personal schedule, it also has my work schedule. It has my husband's work schedule. It has my kids' schedule. Like, it's a rainbow of colors, but not like in the best of ways, if you know what I'm saying. So I knew that I had something going on every single day this week. And I was like, okay, like, this is what it is. Eric and I talked about it, and he was like, I will, like, it was Martin Luther King Day on Monday, so Peanut didn't have school. He's like, I'll take the baby to daycare. That way, you don't have to get up and go out, which was extremely thoughtful of him. So I could just get up and start working. And then Tuesday, I had an appointment. So I knew that there was going to be like a chunk of time that was going to be missing out of my Tuesday. So Monday, like, it's just like once the dominoes start falling, this is where I run into some trouble. Oh, just for your, like, because I showed you two different sets. I used lime, turquoise, and is it Desert Night? I think those are the greens and blues I used. So anywho, I, like, Monday, I had a bad morning. I did not feel good. A lot of my day went to kind of laying in bed. It was just not a good day for me, like, personally. So I finally got started, once the over-the-counter medicine I took kicked in. I finally got started at probably like 1 o'clock doing anything. Thankfully, the video that went up on Monday, it was like already done over the weekend and scheduled to go up, because I was pretty useless Monday morning. So Monday afternoon, I knew I had this thing that was going to go up on Tuesday, and so I started working on that, and I got as far as I could, knowing that the next morning, like, I would have a little bit of time to work on it. I would go to my appointment, I would come back, I would finish working on it, and then I would start the thing for the next day. This is the thing for the next day, PPS. Like, this is it. So Tuesday, like, I got as much done as I could. Well, then, like, I don't know what happened. Something happened Tuesday night. So my husband got a call for work at like 3:30 in the morning. So that woke me up when the phone rang. Then I didn't fall asleep until after 4 o'clock. At 4:30, Miss Jellybean decides that no, her sock went off. That's what it was. So she has a sock that monitors her, and the sock went off that said that there was a problem. So I get out of bed, I go to adjust her sock. When I'm adjusting her sock, she had just recently been up, like kind of moving around. So she was like right on the cusp of that real light sleep. And so when I adjusted her sock, I woke her up. She wasn't mad or sad or any of that. She was just awake. So I sit down in her rocking chair with this sad little child's blanket that I'm trying to cover up with. And I just kind of wait it out until she falls back asleep. Um, so she finally falls back to sleep. I get back into bed at, I think it was like maybe just a smidge after 5. I get back into bed, and at 5:20 she starts crying again. So I'm like, nah, bro, like, you're up. I'm not doing it. So I tap Eric. He's like, I tapped in. He goes and sits with her. I go back to sleep. At 6:10, his alarm goes off, but he's not in the bedroom. So I look on the baby monitor, and like I can see one little socked foot on the ottoman. So like I know that he's in her room. So I get up, and I open the door, and here is my husband, who is obviously bigger than I am, with the same little sad baby blanket, except I put it over my legs. He put it over his top half. So he's like cuddled up with this blanket up to his chin. And it's only like covering down to his waist. But anyway, so I tap him on the leg. I'm like, it's 10 after 6. So then he gets up. I go back to bed, and then of course, my alarm gets off. Like I think at like 7:15. So needless to say, I missed that alarm and didn't get out of bed until like 7:30. Let's talk about what's happening here. So here, because you have to squeeze the marker, sometimes the pigment that comes out can be a little bit too much. Don't stress about it. You can go in, I'm just using a damp paintbrush to go in and kind of like scoop up the pigment. So I'm just absorbing it onto the paintbrush, rinsing it off, dabbing it on a paper towel, and like I'm going to do that until I'm happy with the amount of color that's removed. I'm using this is the number 4 brush from Altenew, to spatter on some just clean water. This is going to like intensify that watercolor look for me. Some people don't like spatters, and you can skip this step, but it's going to pick up pigment and make the watercolor just look more interesting, because it's going to give it some spots and things like that. And I'm going to do that twice. And then from there, I'm also going to scribble down some of the pigment from the markers onto my glass mat and spatter them on as well. This is just, again, adding another layer of something that is a little bit more interesting, but if it's not your style, you can skip it. Also, if you do this part while it's still wet, it will cause the colors to bloom into each other, which is also super beautiful, just kind of a different look. So that was how our Tuesday went. Neither one of us got like super great sleep. So I get up, I get done what I can with the cards. It's not a lot of time before my appointment. I go to my appointment, I come back, and again, I'm back to my cards, like just trying to get it done. Here, some of the colors were just like in the spatters were a little bit too intense. So I just went in with my paper towel and just kind of blotted them up to make them a little lighter. And I was happy with the way that that looked. In this set, there is it's almost like kind of like a folky kind of background, like the way that it's drawn. It's super pretty, but there's a large solid floral image, and then there's like some kind of filler pieces parts. So I knew I was going to die cut out my flowers, my watercolor flowers. So I used the die to just kind of be a placeholder so I could get my other things in place. And I had no idea if this would work when I started doing it, but I thought that it would be really cool to kind of stamp in. So I'm using the same obsidian ink. I'm stamping in it. I'm going to heat emboss it in clear, so I have like this shiny black on this matte black, which I love as a look. But in addition to that, I'm going to run the background through the 3D embossing folder. And like I said, I had no idea if it would work. I didn't know if it would crack the embossing or not. It actually worked beautifully. And it's kind of a super cool look, because then you have this shiny embossing on top of the dry embossing. It can, I think, probably be a bit busy if it's done kind of all over, but just as kind of like an accent background where everything is muted in the same color, I think it works really well. So you have to let me know what you think. So Tuesday I come back, I'm trying to get my cards done. Peanut comes home from school. I'm trying to talk to him. My mom stops by. I was trying to chat with her. Very like, it just kind of was the situation that it was. Like, I was just trying to get my stuff done. And I was not successful. Here is where, like, the poor prioritizing comes in, because at some point I should have just let it go. Like, I should have just been like, okay, these cards, like, this video is not going to get up tonight. I just need to let this one go and move on to the next project. Here, this is me running it through the 3D embossing folder, and I did spritz the back of the paper just to get a nice, good, deep emboss that doesn't crack my paper. So, like, at some point I realize, you know, it's almost 5 o'clock. I need to go pick up Caitlin from daycare, and I don't have my things done. I'm running out of time to edit my video. I'm running out of time to get it up by the 8 p.m. release. And like I said, at some point I should have just been like, Kelly, let it go. And I just can't. I do not know why. Like, I don't know, because like I'm vested in it at that point. I'm not really sure. Like, I could have set them aside and come back to them, but I'm just not that kind of person. Here, this is the insert inside the stamp set, which you use for the stencils. So it kind of lays out for you what each part of the stencil colors, which I think is super helpful. And at first I was kind of like, why is it in the stamp set? Like, that doesn't make any sense. What if you buy the stencil and you don't buy the stamp set? They all come together, guys. That's why. That's why. I forgot about that piece. So they all come together. You can't get one without the other, so that's why it doesn't matter that it's in the stamp set. So here, I just picked out some distress inks. You really don't need to do the first layer. I did it because it was kind of going to make my colors a bit more vibrant, which I'm a big fan of. It also added another layer of color, especially where I did the droplets, and like there was the bleach spots. I just put in new pigment that was the distress ink. But the ones that are kind of all over, like the first 1 to 2 stencils, you could skip doing this. You could just add the shadows, which was like the whole point of having the the underpainting of the watercolor, was for it to look watercolor, and I think in the end it does. This is just adding more intensity to the color, which, especially if you're using muted colors to do this, you may not want. The ones here where we're getting more into adding the shadows, this is probably what you would want to start with if you're not looking to just overall brighten up the intensity of your color. So anywho, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I can't let them go. I ended up finishing them, I think at like right as I was getting ready to go pick up the baby. Here I'm just taping off the insides of the flowers so that I can do the green, and then I'll remove those. And for those small areas, I'll go in with the detailed blending brushes from Altenew just to get those little spots. Those, if you are a person who likes layering stencils and you use them often, those are a great tool because they are so tiny and allows you to not have to tape off a bunch of stuff in order to add your color. Like, you don't have to worry about it getting anywhere else because they're so small and detailed. So then I edited the video. Why? I have no idea, because like the ship has come and gone, y'all. Like, it has come in, it has unloaded, all of the workers have taken a lunch break, they've hit the local bars, they've gotten back on the ship, they've pulled up anchor, and they've sailed away. But I'm still doing it. I'm committed. Why? Could you tell me? I would love to know the answer. Full disclosure, I did mix up the stencils. So I started doing stencil 5 or stencil 6 before stencil 5. It ended up working out fine because it was just like the little detail layers. But if you're wondering why it looked backwards, it's because it was backwards. So then it's like, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night before I even start this card that we're working on here that I'm showing you today. And like, that's I don't know. I have to get better. I have to get better. And this is, I know, not just a me problem, because I recently talked to a friend who was like, is this release not live? And I was like, no, it's live like tonight at 8. And she was like, oh my gosh, I did not prioritize correctly. Like, same, sister. Same. It is what it is. So I did not get that video up yesterday, as you guys know, and I'll just save it for another day. So I have it done. I think it's a cute video. It's got a lot of information, but it just didn't make its debut in a timely fashion. That's all, and it's okay. So here, I love how close this cuts. I love that it cuts out the inserts, in between the flowers. Like, I think that that's so amazing, because you guys know how I feel about the white outline. But because I have a black background, and I really like a black background to make like really vibrant colors pop, because I think this looks so cool, I did go in with this is the Altenew artist marker. This is the S marker, which is actually just black. And for once, I used the bullet tip. Like, aren't you proud of me? The little fine tip? Because it made so much more sense to color in my edges. You also want to make sure you hit the sides up too, just so you can't see like any white from the sides. Once that was done, I just used some regular old adhesive to adhere that down flat. It's not really flat because I've got all of this like super dimension from my 3D embossing folder. But because of that 3D embossing folder and the heat embossing, like, I didn't really feel like I needed to pop it up. But if I did, for sure, this is one that I would die cut multiple dies. I would not foam tape this. No, don't do it. I went in and added some white highlights into the centers of the flowers, and then I moved on to the sentiment. In this set, there's like this cute little hello, and then there's a bunch of sub-sentiments, which I really had a hard time choosing one, honestly, because some of them were so good. So the one I went with was It's Been a While. But then there's, I've been thinking about you, or I hope you have a wonderful day, missing you, my friend, sending lots of hugs. Like, they're just cute little good ones that you could use for a bunch of things. So I heat embossed this in white on black, and then I trimmed out my little label for my sub sentiment, and then I'm going to use the die for the hello. Again, this cuts pretty closely, and I'm a big fan of that. So because I was being lazy and I didn't want to have to get up, I just grabbed my little mini blossom die cutting machine and ran this through. I will say this about this machine, and it always amazes me every time. It feels like it's not cutting anything, because it's so easy to send it through, and then I'm always amazed when I pull my die out and it actually cut it, because I've used so many other die cutting machines where it feels like I have to use so much like muscle that I don't have to get it through, and this one's just like cake to just wind it right through every time. I never think there's enough pressure to cut it. So again, I adhered these down just with glue right on top of the other areas, and then of course I went in with some shimmer because we used watercolors and because we used Distress ink, which is activated with moisture. You can pick up some of the colors on your shimmer pen, just something to keep in mind. So thank you for listening to my vent about how I cannot prioritize my time. Thank you for watching the video. I hope that you learned a little something and are intrigued to try watercolor with your stencils. And head over to Instagram for your chance to win. I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.